All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So our goal here, as always, is to get past the surface level, you know?
Exactly. We're not just skimming. Today we're doing a really comprehensive exploration of one single monumental biblical text.
We're looking at Psalm 104 from the King James Version, and it's one of those that people often, well, they kind of label it as just a nice nature poem.
Right. But the material we're working with suggests it's so much more. It's actually one of the richest theological statements on divine sovereignty and creation you can find anywhere.
We've got a whole stack of analysis here, cross-references. We're going to break this down verse by verse.
Yeah.
And it's this picture of God's absolute, just, effortless power.
But it's woven together with this incredibly tender, really detailed care for every single creature. I mean, from the massive cedar trees right down to the wild goats.
So that's our mission for this discussion. We're aiming to pull out the deepest theological insights, but also the most tangible, practical applications from this one psalm.
We're moving beyond just appreciating the poetry, which is beautiful,
Right.
to really understanding the character of God that's revealed here. And I should say, this entire framework for our discussion is built on the foundational study material that was compiled by the UNFIJ in Jesus team.
And that leads us to the big question that's really driving this whole conversation. It's something for you to think about as we go. How does looking at the vastness of the universe, I mean, God's incredible majesty,
How does that lead to a deeply personal response of worship?
and not just worship, but how does it bring actual tangible stability into the chaos of our daily lives? Let's get into the text. So we start not with this grand sweeping view of creation, but somewhere much smaller. It's almost like looking in a mirror.
Yes, the psalmist issues a command, but it's to himself. It's an internal directive, and that really sets the entire spiritual tone for what's about to unfold.
It has to start there, doesn't it?
It does. It grounds everything that follows in personal humility and devotion. Okay, let's get the text in front of us. This is Psalm 104, verse 1. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty.
It's so important that this isn't a suggestion to someone else. It's a command to his own spirit. He's basically saying, okay, soul, before you look out at the world, you have to look inward, and then you have to look up.
Right. You have to recognize who God is first.
Yeah.
And that really emphasizes this internal, heartfelt kind of worship. The true response has to come from deep within the spirit. It can't just be, a public performance or a reaction to good circumstances.
So he's actively stirring his own heart to acknowledge that God is, as the text says, very great.
And once that's established, the imagery just explodes, right? It shifts to the divine wardrobe. God is clothed with honor and majesty. That's such a powerful picture, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a potent metaphor.
Yeah.
In the ancient world, a king's robes weren't just clothes.
Yeah.
They symbolized their authority, their right to rule, the respect they were due.
So the psalm is saying that God's very nature is glorious. Honor and majesty aren't things he puts on for an event.
No, they're his garments. It's the default expression of his being.
Now, the materials from the UNFIJ in Jesus team highlight a really beautiful connection here, linking this psalm back to the one right before it, Psalm 103.
Yes, the opening lines are almost identical. It creates this wonderful theological pairing. Let me just read the parallel command from Psalm 103, verse 1. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
So if you put them side by side, you've got two different paths leading to the exact same response. Psalm 104 is about God's work in creation, his majesty.
And Psalm 103 is all about his work of forgiveness, of redemption. The sheer size of the cosmos on one hand, and the intimacy of being pardoned on the other.
Both of them force the soul to bless the Lord.
It's a major insight. God's greatness is shown in two equally powerful ways: his absolute power over everything and his personal mercy for us. Both demand that same deep internal worship.
Which brings us to a really practical step, something our source material really stresses. Worship has to start inside, in the spirit.
Yes, we have to make that proactive choice, to stir our own souls, to recognize God's greatness, no matter what our circumstances look like.
So if we're in a dry season, spiritually, the problem isn't that God has somehow become less majestic.
Never. That's the constant. The problem is our own soul's failure to command itself, to look past the immediate and acknowledge the unchanging glory that is the foundation of all reality.
All right, so building on that idea of God being clothed in majesty, the psalmist then gets even more specific. He describes that glory as well as unapproachable light.
And then he shows God just effortlessly interacting with the universe. Okay, let's read the next few verses. This is Psalm 104, verses 2 and 4.
Who covers thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire.
I mean, the imagery there is just so rich.
Yeah.
Let's break that down. First, he's covered with light. This light isn't something he creates separately, it's what he wears. It symbolizes his pure, unapproachable glory.
Right. It reminds me of Moses having to shield his face. The glory is just too intense for us to look at directly. It's this blinding splendor that is his clothing.
And then the scope just zooms out. Who stretches out the heavens like a curtain? The source notes point out how relatable this would have been to ancient nomadic people.
A tent canopy.
Exactly, a tent.
Yeah.
It suggests God's dwelling is vast, it covers everything, but it's also structured. It's pitched like a personal space over all of creation. It's both immense and somehow accessible.
And then we see his complete mastery over nature. He uses the elements as tools, as transportation. It's just stunning poetic theology.
It is. I mean, think about the physics of it. He layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters. This suggests that even the most intangible things like clouds or the water systems in the atmosphere are used as structural supports for his presence.
Things we see as chaotic and unpredictable are just his chariot. The clouds are his chariot. He walks on the wings of the wind.
It's poetry, of course,
Okay.
but the message is about absolute effortless command. God doesn't struggle with physics or weather. He uses the fundamental forces of the cosmos as his own personal regulated systems.
And that command extends from the physical right into the spiritual realm in verse 4.
Yes, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers of flaming fire.
This sets up a very clear hierarchy of power, doesn't it? The angels, these beings of incredible might and speed, described as flaming fire. They're not independent.
Not at all. They are made. They are commanded by God. They are his servants carrying out his will.
And the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials point out a really critical New Testament connection here.
This verse, Psalm 104, verse 4, is quoted directly in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 7.
And that passage in Hebrews is all about establishing the supremacy of Jesus Christ over all the angels. The writer quotes this psalm saying, "And of the angels he saith, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire."
So by using this verse, the author of Hebrews is using the Old Testament's own definition of angels as powerful created servants to contrast them with the Son, who is eternal and sovereign.
It just reinforces the whole structure that Psalm 104 is building. Even the highest spiritual beings are part of this created order.
Exactly.
So how do we bridge this huge gap between a God who rides the wind and commands fire and our own, daily anxieties?
Well, that's where the practical application comes in, and it should be deeply comforting. We worry about things that are outside our control, right? The weather, our finances, spiritual threats.
But the God who rules the entire cosmos with such effortless power, he's the same God who is concerned with our personal lives. If clouds are his chariots and angels are his servants,
Then the chaotic little elements in our lives are certainly within his control. Nothing is outside of that boundary.
Okay, so the psalmist moves from God's personal glory, the light, the robes, to his practical work as this grand architect.
Yes, focusing on the sheer stability he's engineered into the earth itself. It's an answer to the fear of cosmic collapse.
It's about permanence.
And reliability. Let's look at Psalm 104, verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be removed forever?
I love that. It's worship for God as the ultimate engineer. The earth isn't just floating randomly. It's a meticulously planned structure on these unshakable foundations.
And that phrase, should not be removed forever, it emphasizes this enduring stability. The materials from the You Need Faith in Jesus team clarify this point really well. While Scripture talks about a future renewal, the current structure is totally stable within God's plan.
The laws of physics, the planet's rotation, the seasons, they all follow the reliable patterns he set.
Right, and this concept of God laying the foundations is used elsewhere in Scripture to humble human arrogance.
You're talking about Job.
Exactly. Job chapter 38, verse 4. God challenges Job's limited understanding with this very idea. He asked him, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding."
It just highlights that infinite gap between our knowledge and God's wisdom. We can study geology our whole lives, but we weren't there when he laid the cornerstone.
So the application for us today is profoundly grounding. If God can establish an entire planet with such reliability that it cannot be moved,
Then he can surely establish our lives.
that's where we find peace. When our own world feels shaky, we look at the permanence of the ground beneath our feet, which is only permanent because God says so, and we're reminded to find our stability in his character.
So from the solid foundations, the psalmist then rewinds. He goes back to the initial state of the world covered in this primordial chaos of water.
And he describes how God brought immediate, absolute order to it. This is Psalm 104, verses 6 through 9. Thou coveredst it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys, unto the place which thou hast founded for them. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over, that they turn not again to cover the earth.
Wow. I mean, the language is so dramatic. You can picture it, the chaotic deep covering everything, and then...
And then God speaks. The language is so active, the water doesn't just recede, it fled. It hasted away at his rebuke. It's like even the forces of nature snap to attention when he speaks.
The main action here is God as the boundary setter. He assigns the seas their permanent place. He sets a boundary they cannot cross.
He's bringing complete controlled order out of this overwhelming chaos, and it's a direct reflection of the creation account in Genesis chapter 1, verse 9. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so.
The theological parallel here is so deep because the sea in the Bible often represents chaos, right? This untamable, hostile power.
It does. And this passage shows that, even the symbol of ultimate chaos, is completely subject to God's precise word. He tells it where to stop, and it stops.
Which brings us to the application from the source material.
If God can tame the primal chaos of the deep, he can certainly manage the internal chaos in our lives.
He can speak into the chaos of our finances, our relationships, our fears, and bring order. He sets boundaries for the troubles we face.
That's it. Just like the waves crash on the shore but can't flood the land because of a divine decree, our trials cannot go beyond the bounds that he, the great architect, has already set.
That thought alone is a deep well of peace. Okay, so we're shifting now from this monumental scale of architecture to the almost microscopic details of God's daily management.
Exactly. This is the move from demonstrating sheer majesty to revealing this tender, painstaking mercy.
The detail here is just remarkable. It really shows the creator of the cosmos is also the local groundskeeper.
It does. Let's read Psalm 104, verses 10 through 13. He sendeth the springs into the valleys, which run among the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quench their thirst. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The fruit of the earth is satisfied with his work.
The key word there is sendeth. It's not automatic. God is actively sending the springs where they're needed. He's maintaining the infrastructure of life.
And notice who it's for. The wild asses. This is care for the unmanaged, untamed creatures. It's a universal ecological system of care. The springs provide water, which feeds the plants, which provides homes for the birds.
And the source of the water is so beautiful. He watereth the hills from his chambers. The rain comes from his own dwelling place.
The whole earth is satisfied with his work. He's the ultimate supply chain manager.
And this passage really becomes the foundation for Jesus' own teaching on worry, doesn't it?
It does. A direct line. You can see it in Matthew chapter 6, verse 26.
Right, where Jesus tells us to, Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are you not much better than they?
The logic is just undeniable. If God is faithful enough to maintain specific springs for a wild donkey in the desert, our trust in his provision should be absolute.
So the practical step, which the You Need Faith in Jesus team outlines, is to build our confidence on this. His care isn't distant, it's intensely personal and detailed.
And then the focus narrows even more, from the wild to humanity. And this is where we see God's incredible generosity. He provides far more than just what's needed for survival.
Right. Let's look at verses 14 and 15 of Psalm 104.
He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face to shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart.
You see two different kinds of provision there. For cattle, it's direct grass. For humans, it's herb for the service of man. It requires cultivation.
It's a partnership. We work with creation.
Yeah.
But the key insight is the generosity. God isn't a stingy provider. The psalm lists 3 blessings that go way beyond just staying alive.
Wine, oil, and bread. Let's unpack those, because what they're for says so much about God's character.
First, wine. It explicitly says, "It maketh glad the heart of man." This is provision for joy, for celebration, for emotional well-being.
So the Creator provides the means for genuine human joy. That pushes back against any idea of God being some kind of cosmic killjoy.
He wants us to be glad. Then second, oil, to make his face to shine. In that culture, a shining face meant health, dignity, social well-being.
Not being in mourning or poverty.
Exactly. So he provides for our strength, our happiness, and our dignity. And then third, bread, which strengtheneth man's heart. That's the core sustenance.
The implication is just so clear. God is a generous Father who loves giving good gifts.
It aligns perfectly with Genesis 1.29, his original provision. The practical step from the You Need Faith in Jesus team challenges us to receive these blessings with gratitude.
To see the good things in life, even the small pleasures, as intentional signs of the Creator's generosity toward us.
And finally, in this section, the psalmist goes back to the design of the ecosystem, focusing on the incredibly detailed placement of specific creatures in their perfect habitats.
It's like zooming in on a master blueprint. Psalm 104, verses 16 through 18.
The trees of the Lord are full of sap, the cedars of Lebanon, which he hath planted, where the birds make their nests. As for the stork, the fir trees are her house, the high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for the conies.
The cedars of Lebanon are so magnificent they're called the trees of the Lord, and one of their purposes, to be a house for the stork.
It's not generalized, it's customized architectural placement. A stork needs a high, sturdy platform for its big nest, so God provides the perfect tree to fit the bird's need.
And then you have these refuge systems, the high hills for the wild goats so they can escape predators, the rocks for the conies,
which are small, rock-dwelling mammals. It shows this incredibly wise and purposeful creator. He doesn't just scatter life randomly. He designs specific places and functions for every living thing.
Which, again, the You Need Faith in Jesus team connects to our own sense of identity and purpose.
Absolutely. If the stork and the coney have an intentional, purpose-built place in God's plan, then we can trust that we are not an accident.
We can trust that he has a specific purpose and place for each of us, designed by the same wise creator who built the cedars of Lebanon to be a house for the stork. Okay, so we've covered the foundations, the provision, the ecosystems. Now the psalmist turns to the structure of time itself.
And then to the ultimate mystery, the ocean. But first, the rhythms that govern all life. This is Psalm 104, verses 19 through 23. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. The young lions roar after their prey and seek their meat from God. The sun ariseth, they gather themselves together and lay them down in their dens. Man goeth forth unto his work and to his labor until the evening.
It's a cosmic clock, isn't it? The sun and moon keep this precise, reliable schedule. The moon marks seasons. Even religious festivals are built into this.
And notice the purpose of darkness. It's not evil or accidental. God makes darkness. It's the appointed time for the nocturnal world to function.
And what's staggering to me is how it includes the lion. The fiercest predator roaring for its prey is described as seeking its meat from God.
Even the violent necessity of the food chain is supplied by divine providence. God is orchestrating the hunt.
And then when the sun rises, the predators retreat. They go to their dens, and humanity takes over.
Man goeth forth unto his work and to his labor until the evening. God has established this ordered rhythm of purposeful work, followed by necessary rest.
This goes right back to Genesis 1, verse 14, where the lights were made.
For signs and for seasons and for days and years.
So the application for us is that our personal rhythms, work, rest, seasons of productivity and retreat are part of God's good plan.
Right. And the materials from the You Need Faith in Jesus team really emphasize this. To fight the need for rest, to treat work as unending, is to fight against a divine decree.
Yeah.
God set the boundary of the evening for a reason.
And then it's like the psalmist is just overwhelmed by all this order on land and in the sky, and he just bursts into praise before turning to the sea.
It's a real pivot point of emotion. Psalm 104, verses 24 through 26. O Lord, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein.
Manifold. That word is key. Varied, numerous, complex. He's struck by the sheer variety of it all. The earth is bursting with God's riches.
And then he looks at the great and wide sea. For ancient people, the ocean was the ultimate unknown, a place of danger and mystery.
But he immediately notes it's teeming with life, full of innumerable creatures.
But then comes the theological mic drop. Leviathan. In their culture, this was a terrifying mythological monster, the embodiment of chaos.
Far more dangerous than the lion.
And what does the psalmist say about it? God made this monster to play therein.
That one line just completely reframes the power dynamic. The most fearsome creature imaginable is just a pet, a plaything in God's ocean.
It suggests God's immense, effortless power, and even a sense of divine playfulness. We remember how God talks about Leviathan in Job 41, asking Job,
"Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook?"
Right. The point being, if you can't even handle the creature I made for my own amusement, how can you possibly question my plan for the universe?
And this brings us to that core perspective shift that the "you need faith in Jesus" team application highlights. When we feel overwhelmed by our own problems, our personal Leviathan,
Whether it's debt or illness or some impossible task.
we look at this verse. The God we serve is so powerful that the most chaotic forces in creation are just things he made for his own purpose. No problem we face is too big for the God who made Leviathan as a plaything.
Okay, so having established God's control over everything, the cosmos, time, the sea, the psalmist now explores the ultimate connection, the absolute dependence of every living thing on the Creator for its very breath.
This section is just a profound summary of providence. This is Psalm 104, verses 27 through 30.
These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season, that thou givest them they gather. Thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. Thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they die, and return to their dust. Thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created, and thou renewest the face of the earth.
That phrase, "wait all upon thee," is everything. Every single living thing is in a constant state of total dependence on God for its daily food.
Life isn't autonomous. It's a continual gift from his open, generous hand. But then you see the other side of that sovereignty.
When he hideth thy face, when he withdraws his presence, they are troubled. And then, so simply, he takes away their breath and they die.
Every single breath is a loan from God. It shatters any illusion that we are self-sufficient.
But the cycle doesn't end in loss. Death gives way to renewal because God sendest forth thy spirit, they are created.
The spirit is the active force of life. This connects directly to the very beginning of creation in Genesis 1, verse 2, when the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
So the profound truth here, and this is an application supported by the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials, is that our every physical breath is a moment-by-moment gift.
And just as creation depends on the Holy Spirit for physical life, our spiritual life depends on Him for rebirth and daily renewal.
Yeah.
We have to embrace that radical dependency.
The psalmist then concludes this whole section on the life-death cycle by declaring the ultimate purpose of it all, God's glory and his joy. Let's hear Psalm 104, verses 31 and 32. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his works. He looketh on the earth, and it trembleth. He toucheth the hills, and they smoke.
God's glory is eternal, and the text says God himself finds genuine joy in what he has made. Creation's ultimate purpose is to bring him glory and pleasure.
And then once again, the psalmist snaps back to God's awesome, effortless power. It's not a struggle for him. A mere look makes the earth tremble.
And a simple touch makes the mountains smoke. It invokes this powerful volcanic imagery, or maybe even the descent on Mount Sinai.
Right, from Exodus 19, verse 18.
And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire.
This contrast is so important. God delights in his works, but he is also the being before whom the entire planet quakes. He's both a joyful father and an absolute sovereign.
So the practical step is a call to alignment. We need to align our hearts with God's, to find joy in the things that bring him joy.
And to maintain that healthy, reverent awe. He's the loving provider, but he's also the all-powerful God before whom the hills smoke. And now the psalm comes full circle. It started with a personal command to the soul, and it ends with this definitive, lifelong personal pledge.
Right. He takes all these grand observations and synthesizes them into his one singular response. This is Psalm 104, verses 33 and 34. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. My meditation of him shall be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord.
As long as I live, while I have my being. I mean, that's an existential commitment. It's the only appropriate response to everything he's just seen.
And it includes the internal life. He wants his meditation, his inner thoughts about God, to be sweet, pleasing to God, fulfilling to him.
Worship starts in our internal monologue.
Exactly. And the result of that kind of focused meditation is a deep, settled joy, I will be glad in the Lord. The joy isn't in circumstances, it's in Him.
This echoes other psalms, like Psalm 146.
Verse 2. While I live, will I praise the Lord. I will sing praises unto my God while I have any being.
So the practical step from the You Need Faith in Jesus team is a direct challenge to us. Make worship a continuous internal response fueled by intentional thought about God.
And that brings us to the very last verse, which can sound, well, a little jarring at first. Psalm 104, verse 35. Let the sinners be consumed out of the earth, and let the wicked be no more. Bless thou the Lord, O my soul. Praise ye the Lord.
That does feel like a sharp turn after a beautiful poem about God's provision. Is he just asking for revenge?
No, and the source analysis is very clear on this. This is not a personal vendetta. It's a cry for God's perfectly ordered creation to be purified from the one thing that doesn't belong, the stain of sin.
So sin is the one element of chaos that God did not create.
Exactly. It defiles what He made good. So this is a prayer for the ultimate fulfillment of God's kingdom, a prayer for the world to finally reflect the perfection of the first 34 verses.
It's looking forward to the new heavens and new earth, like in Revelation 21, verse 27.
There shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth.
And the structure is just perfect. This prayer for purification immediately leads him right back to the opening theme. A personal declaration, bless thou the Lord, O my soul, and then a corporate call, praise ye the Lord.
So the final challenge from the You Need Faith in Jesus team is this. Our love for God's ordered creation should produce in us a hatred for sin and a deep longing for the day when Christ returns and all of creation is finally restored.
It's a commitment to live now in anticipation of that purified order, praising God even as we long for the perfection He's promised.
What an incredible journey through just one psalm. We started with a personal command and ended with a corporate call to praise. We've seen God not just as the grand architect, but as the intimate sustainer.
And this detailed study, really driven by the materials from the You Need Faith in Jesus team, has reinforced that central theme, majesty and mercy.
His Majesty, wearing light as a garment, taming the sea.
And His mercy, providing springs for the wild asses and wine to make our hearts glad.
The key takeaways for you, I think, are these. Worship starts inside, with a command to your own soul. And you can find deep assurance in knowing that God sets boundaries for chaos. The troubles you face cannot go beyond what He allows.
And we gained that essential perspective. Our God is so powerful that Leviathan, the symbol of chaos, is merely His plaything. That should empower us to receive and enjoy His generous gifts, knowing He provides not just for survival, but for our genuine well-being.
So we'll leave you with this final thought, building on that profound sovereignty. If God commands the chaos of the sea and ensures the Leviathan has a place to play, how might your daily perspective change if you viewed your own overwhelming problems as merely existing within the generous, sovereign bounds He has already established?
What specific boundary in your life today can you submit to the architect of the earth and just rest in His control? That is the enduring challenge and comfort of Psalm 104. We encourage you to keep seeking this kind of detailed understanding.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.